Hello everyone, I'm Jerry Barrett, and today for the first time I am not talking to you from my cozy kitchen. This is a special day. It's my birthday, and I'm now starting my 94th year of life. I'm getting a lot older now, and in my long life I have seen a lot of things, and I saw most of them with my husband John. We did everything together for more than 60 years. We worked together, and we had lots of adventures. We had so much fun operating a little cowboy cafe, cooking up good food for our customers. But the most important thing we did together was raising our family. We had 6 sons, and today, as you see, all 6 boys are here with me, sharing my birthday. I cook with my sons in the videos you watch, so I want to introduce my sons to you now. My oldest son is Steve.
Thanks, Mom. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some food because Mom's been doing some cooking and we've been filming some of these things. And we had the restaurant, but we have to remember that for the older boys, we grew up the most of our life before they had a restaurant. So our memory was of the big memory is of the meals we had at home. And the thing I remember that was really interesting and looking back, fun to watch, probably not fun for my mom at the time, but we do these great home-cooked meals, and she had 4 hungry boys at home, and trying to do enough food and do it quick enough to keep it from all getting eaten by the first kid before the last one got anything. And one of the things we really, really liked was she made pot roast and potato pancakes, or potato latkes we call them. And in fact, Mom and I did a video about those, of cooking those. Well, we just love those, but it took a while. You had to make the potato pancakes just a few at a time, and no matter how hard she worked, she could never get ahead. All of us boys would have them done, and we'd eat them before she got done. So it was great to have those kind of meals. And then later in the restaurant, I used to work in the afternoons during high school, and Mom would have an afternoon shift, and a lot of times it would be slow. So we'd get out cookbooks, and Mom would tell me about what we call pretty fancy things when you're from Red Lodge, Montana, things no one ever ate or weren't on any menus around there. I mean, get the ingredients, and we'd cook them. And I learned to cook all those things, and experimented a whole bunch, and it was really great, and I did learn to cook. And years later, I told my dad, and he went, darn, he says, I never could figure out why food costs were so high. So, what do you remember, John?
Well, hard to beat that, latkes, I'll tell you. But you know what I remember is were Saturdays. Saturday was a special day because on Saturdays, unlike all the rest of the days of the week, we could eat some hamburger from beef. So usually it's venison and antelope and rabbit and elk and even bear sometimes, but that's Montana eating when you're poor. But boy, that was the day we'd get some beef. But more importantly on Saturday was bread making day. And my mom would bake 25 loaves of bread or so. She'd give some away to the doctor and the dentist because that was part of how you bartered in those days. And the rest we'd have for the week to sustain us. But the best part, she'd have this big wash tub, huge, and it'd be filled with dough, and all of us kids, or the 4 of us, would be punching and kneading the dough. That was great fun. She cleaned our hands first. But right after that, it would go in the oven, and man, within minutes, the house would fill this incredible aroma of fresh baked bread, and we get out the butter, just slabs of fresh butter, and paint the bread with them, and we all enjoyed that. But then came the real treat for all of us. The reason we hung around is she'd save some dough, and we would make cinnamon rolls. Each of us had our own style. We'd roll it out, the dough, and I'd always put lots of butter, too much butter. Evan used to eat straight butter, but we put lots of butter on it and spread sugar, and then the secret, the brown sugar too, she'd have, and even some nuts and raisins if we had them. And it was cinnamon right on the top. And roll them up and twist them in the way you want, chop them up, and in the oven they'd go, and we just watch that oven like watching water boil. But when they came out, she would take it and turn the pan over, And sure enough, they were just fabulous because all those ingredients would melt down and cook and create a nice crusty bottom to them that were just fabulous and so wonderful with the cinnamon. That was my favorite. Evan, what about you?
I have a hard time getting my mind off of those cinnamon rolls. I'll tell you, that was really something. You know, when Steve talked about being in the restaurant in the afternoons and being slow, that was a fast time compared to Sunday afternoons. Mom and I would cover the Sunday afternoon shift, and only a couple people would come in for the whole shift, and we had plenty of time to try to do some things. And so she taught me a lot of things. I picked up on some exotic meals, things I'd never heard of, like when we made krepla for the first time. I thought, what's this Jewish ravioli thing, you know? But it was really, really good in the chicken soup. But the main lesson was about simplicity. Things don't have to be complex to be good when you're cooking. And so, example with the chicken, I learned how to cook chicken, to take it and brown it in a frying pan with a little butter, and then put it in the oven. Maybe a little salt, pepper on it was all, a little paprika maybe for color, and then let the oven do its work at about 300, 325 degrees, a long period of time, slow cooking it and making it tender. But the magic, of course, was garlic, adding garlic to it. And you know, if there's one lesson we learned from Mom and Dad, you can never have too much garlic. You know. So, Bruce.
Well, you know, most of my memories, at least the strongest one, come from the days when I used to walk with my father down to open up the restaurant each morning. Our little cafe in Montana was about, 1.5, maybe 2 miles from the house. And we only had one car. So my father and I would walk down to the restaurant to open up, to get the lunch started, to start the soup of the day, and my mom would come down a little later in the automobile and join us. And when we had those walks together, they were wonderful. Even when it was cold, he would tell me stories about his life, his history, but we would talk about food and cooking. I can remember that's where I really caught the magic of how wonderful it was to be able to take ingredients and sequence things just right and use heat and water and bring things together to form a wonderful dish. I remember just one example. I had tried to make some potato salad, and I had put the mayonnaise in early, and later I tried to salt the mixture, and I couldn't get the salt to distribute well. And he explained to me, always put your dry ingredients together into a bowl and get them all mixed up, and then only at the end add the wet ingredients, teaching me that that's the way to get your spices and everything evenly. That may sound like a small thing, but it was a big thing to me. It just caught me into the magic of cooking. I loved those times with my dad, and later when my mom came down to the restaurant. It was wonderful. So what about you, Mark?
Well, being the fifth of the 6 boys, I grew up until I went to college. I spent all my young years eating every meal in the restaurant. And unlike my friends who had their home-cooked meals at home, I had all my home-cooked meals at a restaurant most every day. However, I do remember clearly on Sunday mornings, Dad would get back from church and we would have breakfast, and we would have poached eggs most Sundays, and I really thought that was great to cook or to eat at home like that. And I learned how to cook poached eggs on those mornings, and it was a very simple way, just a pot and water, and that's all. No special things you need to cook it, and you get the water to a boil and bring it down to a simmer and get the water rotating in a clockwise motion, and you'd gently dump the eggs out of a bowl in there, and basically you'd poach them and take them out and put them on the bread. And it seemed very simple, but to this day I still cook them. I've showed lots of friends how to do that, and it was a great memory I had in the morning, and we cooked some recently, right, Mom? It was just great.
Right.
And how about you, Joe? What do you think?
Well, I'm the youngest one, and my full growing up took place in those restaurants. When I was born, they owned their first place, the Chuck Wagon Cafe in Red Lodge, Montana, and it was open 7 days a week. And a few years later, they sold it. We moved to Cody, Wyoming, and they bought the Sportsman Cafe, which was only open 6 days a week. So imagine that. They had Sundays off. And a few years later, they sold that, and we moved to Billings, Montana, and they opened the Treasure State Luncheonette. And that was really living the easy life. It was only open Monday through Friday. So they actually had, for the first time in my memory, whole weekends off. And just like Mark, my idea of a home-cooked meal was coming right from a restaurant. And as a kid, I just loved that because I'd go in and order whatever I wanted. And of course, they were usually busy, so I usually got what I ordered. So I would have French toast for breakfast almost every day. And then I'd have French toast for lunch, and sometimes French toast for dinner. And one of the things I really loved is Dad would make homemade beef and noodles as one of the daily specials, and I would order it hold the beef. And so I really would just have homemade noodles with butter. And I also learned how to order things in restaurant style. I remember I'd go to a restaurant, you'd say, order it hot beef, cold style, which means it would just be a sandwich without gravy, but the roast beef would be warmed up. There's a lot of important things I learned from that, and I have a lot of great memories of it, and I think it was a great time for me and for all of us. So that's my memories.
Well, just one quick word to all our friends who are watching this. I think you can see that we're a close family. We love each other, and we especially love our mother. And they had a lot of influence on us, my mother and father, and one of the influences was to teach us to love the kitchen, to love food, to love the joy of sharing that kind of thing with the people we love. So I guess on a day like this, there's not much else we can say, but happy birthday, Mom. Happy birthday, Mom. Happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
94 and plenty more.
I love you all.